What if the wildest heart in the desert could teach us more about healing than any human ever could? One sun-scorched afternoon in Arizona, Zach Miller's ordinary day turned extraordinary when he found a wounded bobcat. Battered, broken, but still searching for her lost family. He could have walked away. Instead, he risked everything to save her, not knowing that this single act of compassion would ripple out and change countless lives. If stories of hope and second chances move you, give this video a like. And if you want to follow more true tales where love rewrites the rules, hit subscribe and join our community. Stay with us, because Luna's journey isn't just about survival. It's about how one broken heart can help heal the world. It was late afternoon, and the desert sun baked the outskirts of Scottsdale, Arizona, turning the highway shimmer into molten gold. Zach Miller's old Ford van rattled along a cracked road lined with creosote bushes and the skeletons of saguaro cacti, the air thick with heat. His work shirt stuck to his back, sweat pooling at his collar, and the air conditioner groaned like a dying animal. Zach glanced at the clock. Almost 5. Just one more delivery before he could head home, shower, and forget about the relentless monotony of the day. A sudden movement by the roadside caught his eye. At first, he thought it was a mirage, a tumbleweed blown by the wind, maybe a stray dog limping in the dust. But as he drew closer, he realized with a shock that it was something much wilder. There, barely moving in the shadow of a road sign, was a bobcat. Not the powerful predator he'd seen in nature documentaries, but a broken, battered animal, ribs poking through fur matted with blood and dirt. Its breathing was shallow, its golden eyes glazed with pain and fear. "Damn," Zach muttered, slamming on the brakes. The van fishtailed on loose gravel as he pulled onto the shoulder, dust billowing around him. He grabbed his first aid kit, left over from his days as a vet tech before deliveries paid the bills, and approached the animal with caution, keeping his movements slow and his voice low. "It's okay, girl. I'm not going to hurt you," he murmured, though he knew wild animals could lash out in terror. But this bobcat didn't snarl or run. She barely even lifted her head as he knelt beside her, noticing deep gashes along her hind leg and side, likely from a car or maybe a coyote attack. Blood stained the sand beneath her, but what stopped Zach cold was the telltale sign of milk. Her body was still lactating. She was a mother, and her cubs weren't here. Panic surged in Zach's chest. He scanned the desert in every direction, searching for signs of tiny paws, tufts of fur, any movement. The silence was crushing. Just the wind and the distant whine of cicadas. He had a choice: follow company protocol and call animal control, or break the rules, risk his job, and try to save her himself. He hesitated only a moment. "You're coming with me, Mama," he whispered. He shrugged out of his shirt, careful not to frighten her, and gingerly wrapped the wounded bobcat in soft cotton. The animal was limp, barely conscious, but as he lifted her, she let out a low, guttural moan, somewhere between pain and desperate hope. The van's interior reeked of sweat, fast food, and now the sharp metallic tang of blood. Zach set her gently on the passenger seat, propping her head on his jacket. Every bump in the road made her whimper, and Zach felt the weight of responsibility pressing down like the Arizona sun. He picked up his phone and dialed North Valley Wildlife Rescue, explaining the situation in a rushed, breathless voice. "She's in bad shape. She's a nursing mother, but I don't see any cubs. I'm 5 minutes out. Please have someone ready." "Bring her straight to intake," the woman on the line said. "We'll do what we can." Traffic was mercifully light. Zach wove through the streets, ignoring the speed limit, his heart pounding as he kept one eye on the silent bundle beside him. He caught glimpses of himself in the rearview mirror, sunburned face, wild eyes, and wondered for a split second if he'd lost his mind. Would anyone else care this much about a wild animal, a predator most folks would rather avoid? But he couldn't shake the image of that empty desert, the cubs that might never see their mother again. He pulled up to the rescue center with a screech, barely putting the van in park before running inside, cradling the bobcat in his arms. The staff hustled into motion, a blur of scrubs, gloves, and clipped voices. "She's in shock. Let's get her on the table." "Vitals are dropping. Get fluid started." Zach watched as they worked with practiced urgency, cleaning her wounds, stitching the worst gashes, checking for internal injuries. Dr. Riley Thompson, the head wildlife vet, pressed her stethoscope against the bobcat's side, brow furrowed in concentration. "She's been out there a while. I don't know if she's going to make it," she murmured, "but she's lactating. Where are her cubs?" Zach shook his head. "I searched. Nothing. No tracks, no sound. The desert's so damn big." Riley's eyes flashed with empathy and frustration. "She must have lost them. Or maybe they're out there, scared and alone. We need to focus on saving her first." For the next hour, the center buzzed with tension. Zach lingered in the waiting room, dirty and exhausted, staring at the closed doors as if his willpower alone could save her. In his mind, images tumbled. Her battered body, the unseen cubs, the endless expanse of desert that swallowed the weak and wounded. As dusk fell, Riley emerged, wiping sweat from her brow. "She's stable for now," she said, "but her spirit's broken. She keeps searching the room, like she's listening for something." Zach's voice cracked. "What happens next?" "We wait and pray. If she lives through the night, maybe we can give her a second chance. Maybe somehow, her story isn't over yet." Outside, the desert wind howled, and the sun dipped below the horizon, leaving the world cloaked in shadow and hope. The moon hung heavy over the North Valley Wildlife Rescue, spilling cold silver light through the mesh of outdoor enclosures and casting long, eerie shadows across the gravel walkways. Inside the medical wing, fluorescent bulbs buzzed overhead, fighting off the desert darkness. Dr. Riley Thompson, head vet, veteran of 1,000 rescue cases, leaned against the observation window, her arms folded tight across her chest. On the other side of the glass, the bobcat they'd named Luna lay curled in a fleece-lined recovery crate, her breathing shallow, her body a map of fresh stitches and shaved patches. Riley checked her chart again, then peeked through the slot in the door, scanning for any sign of progress. Luna hadn't touched the bowl of water or the chicken breast placed beside her. She didn't snarl, didn't pace, didn't even hiss at the humans who came and went. It was like a light had gone out inside her. Some essential spark had flickered, and now she moved only because her body had not given up. In the background, Zach hovered, restless in the staff break room, staring at a vending machine without seeing it. He could hear every sound in the clinic, the beep of a heart monitor, the shuffle of footsteps, the hum of a distant radio. When Riley found him, he jumped as if waking from a dream. "She's alive," Riley said quietly, "but she's not fighting. I've seen this before, with dogs, foxes, even a mountain lion once. Sometimes the will to survive isn't enough if their heart's not in it." Zach pressed a hand to his forehead. "She lost her babies out there. I can't stop thinking about them, alone, scared, probably not making it through the night." Riley nodded, her jaw tight. "It's the harshest part of rescue work. We save who we can, but sometimes grief is the hardest wound to heal." That night, Riley set up a camera in Luna's enclosure, hoping to monitor her without disturbing her further. The feed glowed on a small monitor at the nurse's station, At 1 a.m., as the staff rotated shifts, a piercing, keening sound drifted from the speakers. At first, it was a low, broken whimper. Then it rose into a mournful, desperate yowl. It was not the threatening call of a bobcat defending territory, but the raw, aching cry of a mother searching for something she'd lost. Nurse Patty, who'd been sipping coffee, set down her mug. "That'll break your heart," she whispered. All night, Luna called out in intervals, nose pressed to the crate's wire, ears twitching at phantom sounds in the darkness. Each time her body shook with the effort, as if the hope for a response was more exhausting than her wounds. By sunrise, she lay motionless, sides heaving with shallow breaths. The next morning, Riley walked into the medical wing to find Luna curled tighter than ever, her food untouched. Riley knelt beside her, speaking softly. "I wish I could explain this to you. I wish I could tell you they're safe. But you're all alone, aren't you?" She reached through the bars and gently stroked the uninjured fur behind Luna's ear. The bobcat didn't flinch. She didn't purr or snarl. She just stared, eyes wide and hollow, somewhere far away. The staff had seen animals fight, rage, even try to escape. What they hadn't seen was a wild creature so clearly lost in grief. In the days that followed, Luna's condition worsened. She refused food. She drank only when Riley hand-fed her water with a syringe. When a vet tech tried to examine her, Luna didn't bare her teeth. She simply closed her eyes and withdrew into herself. The signs were unmistakable: depression, deep mourning, and the slow fading that sometimes came for animals whose hearts had shattered. For Riley, the struggle was twofold. She fought to keep Luna alive, fluids, pain meds, vitamins, but also wrestled with a sinking dread that medical science could do nothing if Luna's soul had already given up. Each shift, Riley spent a little longer at Luna's side, telling her stories of the desert, humming softly, desperate to reach her through the wall of loss. Other staff members began to worry. "If she doesn't start eating soon, her organs will shut down," warned Dr. Nunez, the center's newest vet. "I know," Riley replied, her voice raw. "But she's not just hurt. She's mourning. She needs a reason to live. And I'm not sure we can give her that." One stormy evening, as thunder rattled the windows and the desert air turned thick and electric, Luna lifted her head. For a heartbeat, her ears perked, as if catching some distant, imagined sound. A memory, maybe, of tiny paws or the rumble of a cub's purr. Then she slumped back down, the effort draining what little energy she had left. That night, Riley lay awake, haunted by the image of Luna fading away. She thought of all the animals she'd saved, the ones who'd pulled through against all odds, and the rare, crushing cases where love wasn't enough. She remembered her own mother, lost to cancer, and the weeks when grief had threatened to swallow her whole. Maybe that was the secret. Grief was a wilderness even humans couldn't navigate alone. As dawn painted the sky in pale pink and gold, Luna's faint cries drifted through the halls one last time. The center was silent, everyone holding their breath, hoping for a miracle. It was clear. Luna's body was still here, but her heart was out there in the desert, searching, calling, longing for the cubs she might never see again. The world outside the rescue center pulsed with the heat of the Arizona summer, cicadas humming beneath the night sky as life went on, oblivious to the quiet tragedies inside. While Luna's cries faded, replaced by a heavy hush, a different kind of heartbreak found its way to North Valley Wildlife Rescue. It was just past midnight when Maddie Collins, the newest volunteer, arrived for her overnight shift. Maddie was in her mid-20s, with sun-bleached hair, nervous energy, and a determination that sometimes outpaced her confidence. Her shoes squeaked on the linoleum floor as she let herself in, not wanting to disturb anyone. She was still learning the ropes, still uncertain if she belonged here among the experienced vets and hardened animal handlers. But she cared, sometimes too much. She'd barely set down her backpack when she heard a frantic knocking at the center's back door. A man stood outside, half in shadow, breathless and wide-eyed. He didn't wait for Maddie to speak. "I found them by the dumpster," he said, shoving a battered cardboard box into her hands and disappearing back into the night before she could say a word. Maddie stood stunned, clutching the box to her chest. From inside came the weakest chorus of cries, high-pitched, desperate, the sound of tiny lives refusing to surrender. Heart hammering, she set the box on the intake table and carefully peeled it open. Inside huddled 4 newborn Labrador puppies, their bellies sunken, coats grimy, eyes crusted shut. They pressed together for warmth, shivering, their whimpers growing louder as the cool air hit their fragile bodies. Maddie's throat tightened. "You poor babies," she whispered, reaching out to stroke their trembling backs. "Where's your mom, huh? Why'd someone leave you all alone?" She called for backup, voice shaking, and within minutes, the staff converged, sleepy but galvanized by the emergency. Dr. Riley was among the first to arrive, her exhaustion melting away as she assessed the puppies. "They're hypothermic, malnourished, barely hanging on," Riley said, her hands gentle but swift as she checked each pup's heartbeat. "We need heat packs, formula, and luck." As the team worked, Maddie couldn't tear herself away from the box. She watched as the pups searched blindly for a mother who would never come. Their tiny mouths rooted in the air, hungry for warmth and comfort, crying in waves that seemed to shake the walls. Hours passed, and still the puppies' cries pierced the night. Maddie wrapped them in soft towels, feeding them drops of formula one by one, careful not to overwhelm their fragile bodies. When her shift ended, she lingered, unwilling to leave them alone. The pain in her chest was sharp and familiar. She'd lost her own dog as a child, and the memory of that ache had never fully faded. "Why would anyone do this?" she asked Riley softly later that morning. "Leave them to die like that?" Riley's face softened. "People panic. Maybe the mother died. Maybe the owner couldn't care for them. We see it too often. The best we can do is be here now." For the next 2 days, the puppies remained a storm of need, crying, wriggling, demanding attention. The staff took turns feeding and cleaning them, their hearts breaking a little more with each helpless yelp. Some of the older volunteers wondered aloud if it would have been kinder to let them go peacefully. But Maddie refused to give up hope. "If they're fighting, we're fighting," she said, her chin set stubbornly. It was during a late-night feeding on the 3rd night that something unexpected happened. Maddie had settled on the floor beside Luna's enclosure, bottle in hand, cradling the smallest puppy, a runt, barely half the size of the others. The puppy's cries were thin but persistent, echoing off the tile. Luna, who hadn't reacted to anyone or anything since arriving, suddenly lifted her head. Her ears twitched, nose working the air, eyes sharpening with alertness. Maddie froze, bottle suspended mid-air. For the first time, Luna's gaze met hers, steady, searching, full of a strange, old pain. The bobcat's muscles tensed as she listened, her tail flicking with the memory of instincts once dulled by grief. Another puppy squeaked, louder this time. Luna shifted closer to the wire, pressing her face against it, pupils wide, whiskers trembling. Maddie's heart leapt. Could Luna hear what the staff couldn't? A call beyond hunger, beyond species, something deeper and more desperate. Slowly, Maddie inched the puppy closer to Luna's enclosure, her hands trembling with hope and fear. "Easy, girl," she whispered. "They're just babies, like yours." Luna's breath quickened. She sniffed the air, a low, uncertain rumble in her throat. Not a growl, but a question. The puppy whimpered, and Luna's ears flattened, her entire body straining forward. At that moment, Dr. Riley walked in, catching sight of the scene. She opened her mouth to intervene, but something in Luna's posture stopped her. Instead, she crouched beside Maddie, watching silently. For a full minute, nothing moved except for Luna's nose, twitching just inches from the puppy. Then, as if surrendering to some ancient instinct, Luna let out a deep, guttural purr, a sound Maddie had never heard from a wild animal before. The puppy quieted instantly, pressing closer to the wire as if recognizing a mother's song. Maddie blinked back tears. For the first time since arriving, Luna's eyes were bright, alive, filled not just with longing, but with a glimmer of hope. In the silence that followed, Maddie and Riley exchanged a look, a mix of awe, disbelief, and something dangerously close to relief. Maybe, just maybe, this broken bobcat and these orphaned puppies could save each other. Neither of them said it aloud, but both knew. In that moment, the story had changed. Something extraordinary was about to begin. The next morning at North Valley Wildlife Rescue started earlier than usual. Sunlight pushed through the blinds and filled the recovery wing with warm, golden stripes. Dr. Riley Thompson had barely slept, her mind whirring with questions and worry. Luna, the bobcat who'd teetered on the edge of death and heartbreak, was now alert in her enclosure. And for the first time, the 4 orphaned Labrador puppies had slept quietly, soothed by something the staff couldn't quite explain. In the break room, the staff gathered over lukewarm coffee, their faces drawn but hopeful. Maddie recounted what she'd witnessed in the night. Luna's transformation at the sound of the puppies, the soft purr that seemed to calm even the most distressed of the little ones. The team listened, skepticism flickering across a few faces. "Are you sure?" asked Nurse Patty, brow arched in concern. "She's a wild bobcat. She could hurt them without meaning to." Maddie's jaw tightened, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know what I saw. She wasn't hunting or angry. She was reaching out." Dr. Riley chewed her lip, wrestling with both caution and a spark of curiosity that had kept her in animal medicine all these years. "I've seen some weird things in rescue," she said. "But this, if there's even a chance Luna's instincts are turning maternal, not predatory, it's worth exploring, carefully." The team argued quietly for nearly an hour. Some wanted to call in an animal behaviorist, others to play it safe and keep the puppies far away. Maddie insisted they owed both Luna and the puppies a chance, a real chance, not just a hope. In the end, Dr. Riley made the call. "We'll try it, controlled, 1 puppy, supervised. Maddie, you're the one she trusts most. If at any point Luna shows distress or aggression, we pull back immediately." Maddie's heart raced as she prepared for the introduction. She chose the largest puppy, a chubby golden male with a bold, determined cry. Swaddling him in a soft towel, she stepped into the recovery wing, Dr. Riley shadowing her with a tranquilizer gun just in case. The rest of the staff pressed against the glass outside, breaths held, every eye locked on Luna. Inside, the air felt thick with tension and hope. Luna sat pressed to the corner of her enclosure, her gaze tracking Maddie's every movement. Maddie knelt beside the wire, murmuring, Hey, Luna, remember me? I brought you a friend. She eased the towel-wrapped puppy close to the mesh. Luna's nose twitched, ears forward, no sign of the fear or lethargy she'd shown days before. She crept forward, slow, deliberate, muscles taut but not tense. Inches from the puppy, Luna paused. Maddie's fingers trembled. The puppy let out a plaintive whimper. Luna's eyes widened. Then, in one careful movement, she pressed her face to the wire, sniffed the puppy, and, miraculously, began to lick his head through the metal, purring so loudly it vibrated the crate. The puppy quieted instantly, nestling closer. For the first time, Luna's tail swayed gently, her body language open and relaxed. Dr. Riley's breath caught. "I don't believe it," she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. Maddie blinked back tears. The puppy whimpered again, and Luna responded with a soft, chuffing sound, not unlike the sound a mother cat makes to her kittens. Her golden eyes never left Maddie's, as if pleading for more. Riley made a snap decision. "Open the enclosure, just a crack. Let's see what she does." Maddie's hands shook as she slid open the door just enough to slip the puppy inside. She watched, heart hammering, as Luna stretched forward, mouth open not in a snarl but in gentle, investigative licks. She nudged the puppy with her nose, then, astonishing everyone, curled her body protectively around him. The puppy, warm and safe, began to knead Luna's side with his tiny paws, suckling tentatively. Luna purred, eyes closing, a look of peace transforming her battered face. "Bring the others," Riley breathed, awe in her voice. One by one, Maddie introduced the remaining 3 puppies. Each time Luna sniffed, licked, and tucked them beneath her belly. Soon all 4 puppies lay nestled against her, tiny tails wagging in sleep, their distress finally soothed. Luna lifted her head, meeting Maddie's gaze with a look that was more than animal, more than instinct. It was gratitude. From behind the glass, staff gasped and wept openly. The security camera caught every moment, transmitting it to the overnight monitors and, without anyone knowing yet, to the hearts of millions online soon to come. Over the next hours, Luna tended to her new litter with gentle diligence. She licked each puppy clean, nudged them to her belly, and rumbled softly whenever a staff member approached too quickly. No longer withdrawn and dying, Luna radiated purpose. The wounds on her body still needed healing, but something far deeper, her spirit, had already begun to mend. Riley kept a careful log of every interaction. There were tense moments, times when Luna flinched, or when a puppy's cry startled her. But with each passing hour, trust grew. Maddie became Luna's bridge to the human world, staying close, offering treats, praising her in a soothing voice. Late that night, as the rescue quieted and stars burned bright over the desert, Maddie found herself sitting outside Luna's enclosure, exhausted but hopeful. She watched as Luna curled protectively around the puppies, their soft snuffles blending with Luna's deep, contented purrs. "Good girl, Luna," Maddie whispered, tears slipping down her cheeks. "You saved them, and maybe they'll save you too." Outside, the desert night felt softer, as if even the wind paused to bear witness to something wild and extraordinary happening in the shelter. By the time the sun rose over North Valley Wildlife Rescue the next morning, everything had changed. The staff who had worked through the night emerged from the recovery wing bleary-eyed but smiling, their faces lit by something brighter than exhaustion: hope. The story of Luna and her new litter of puppies spread fast, first through whispers among the volunteers, then to every corner of the center. Luna was transformed. Where there had once been only lethargy and loss, now there was restless energy. She nursed the puppies, her body curled protectively around them, her tail flicking in a rhythm that matched the rise and fall of their tiny bellies. Every so often, she'd lift her head, ears perked, scanning for threats. When staff members approached too quickly, Luna would rise with a warning rumble. Not aggressive, just fiercely protective, a mother's love awakened by circumstance. For Maddie, it was like witnessing a miracle. The puppies, who'd arrived shivering and half-starved, now wriggled with contentment, fighting for their spot at Luna's belly, nuzzling into her fur, drifting to sleep soothed by the steady beat of her heart. Luna groomed them, licking their heads and ears with careful tenderness, just as she would have done for her own lost cubs. Every time one of them squeaked or whimpered, Luna responded instantly, purring and snuffling in reassurance. It didn't take long for the rescue's staff to realize they were witnessing something extraordinary, something that defied logic, instinct, and everything they thought they knew about wild animals and domestic pets. Dr. Riley documented the process meticulously. Luna's physical recovery, her emotional transformation, the way she communicated with the puppies and with the humans who watched over her. One afternoon, as Maddie was preparing bottles of formula just in case, she glanced through the glass into Luna's enclosure. A family was touring the center, their children's noses pressed to the viewing window. Luna looked up, alert but calm, as the little boy on the other side pointed excitedly. "Look, Mommy, the wildcat is taking care of puppies." The moment didn't go unnoticed. A staff member snapped a picture. Luna curled around the puppies, eyes watchful, one paw resting gently atop a sleeping pup. Within hours, the image made its way to the center's social media page. Maddie wrote the caption herself. "Sometimes family is who you choose. Luna the bobcat, rescued from the desert, is now the proud foster mom to 4 orphaned puppies. Healing can happen in the most unexpected ways." Nobody could have predicted what happened next. The post went viral, shared by animal lovers, news outlets, and celebrities across the country. Messages flooded in, some from people who'd adopted pets from the center, others from strangers who just needed hope in their day. Donations poured into the rescue's website, more in a week than they usually saw in 6 months. Handwritten cards arrived from school children, drawings of Luna with her patchwork family taped to the office walls. With the sudden surge in attention came challenges. Reporters began calling at all hours, asking for interviews, camera crews hoping to film Luna and the puppies for morning news segments. Dr. Riley was wary. She knew too much attention could be stressful for both animals and staff. She enforced strict boundaries. No flash photography, no loud noises, and absolutely no handling of the puppies except by Maddie or herself. But controversy simmered beneath the surface. For every heartwarming comment online, there were others raising questions. Was it ethical to let a wild bobcat nurse domestic puppies? Would Luna's instincts turn on the puppies as she regained strength? Was the rescue using the story for publicity at the animal's expense? At an emergency staff meeting, Riley faced her team with frank honesty. "We're doing what's best for Luna and the puppies. Right now, that means letting them heal together. But we'll monitor closely. The second there's any sign of danger, we separate them. We're not running a circus, we're running a sanctuary." Maddie stood by her side, more confident now, her voice clear. "Luna saved those puppies, and I think they saved her too. I know what it's like to lose someone and think you'll never find your way out of that dark place. Sometimes the thing that saves you isn't what you expect." Riley nodded, looking around at her staff, veterans and newcomers alike. "Let's keep our focus on them. We do this the right way, with care and respect." Over the next week, Luna's health improved rapidly. She began to eat heartily, her coat gaining back some of its lost luster, her muscles filling out as she prowled the edges of her enclosure with growing confidence. The puppies thrived, their eyes opening, tails wagging, paws growing stronger as they toddled after Luna wherever she went. When visitors came through, the staff spoke softly, keeping tours brief and respectful. Then, one morning, an unexpected envelope arrived at the rescue center. Inside was a check for $50,000, anonymous, but accompanied by a note. For Luna and every orphan who needs a second chance, thank you for reminding us what compassion looks like. With this windfall, Riley convened the board and proposed the first major expansion in the center's history. A new wing, more enclosures, better equipment. The staff buzzed with excitement, knowing that Luna and her puppies had given the whole rescue a new beginning. But with success came new challenges. Rumors spread that not everyone in the community supported the unusual family. Some feared that Luna, still a wild animal, was being tamed for show. Others wondered if the puppies would be safe as they grew older, if Luna's instincts would shift. A few anonymous threats arrived by mail, warning the rescue to stop interfering with nature. One evening, as a summer storm brewed on the horizon, Maddie sat with Luna and the puppies, brushing tears from her eyes. "I don't know what's next, girl," she whispered, "but we'll face it together, I promise." And as thunder rumbled through the desert and rain began to fall, Luna curled tighter around her adopted family, watching the world with bright, fearless eyes. Night fell heavy over North Valley Wildlife Rescue, the air thick with the promise of rain and distant thunder rolling like a drum. The Arizona summer was known for its sudden, violent storms, but even the seasoned staff felt uneasy as flashes of lightning split the sky and the wind howled through the saguaro and mesquite. Inside, Luna and her 4 puppies slept in a tight, warm huddle, sheltered from the chaos building outside, unaware that everything was about to change. Maddie, wrapping up her evening rounds, checked on each animal with her usual mix of concern and affection. She paused longest by Luna's enclosure. The bobcat lay curled around the puppies, all 5 rising and falling together in a slow, peaceful rhythm. Maddie smiled, whispering, "Safe and sound, huh?" She didn't notice the way the wind rattled the windows, or how a low branch outside bent under the growing weight of the rain. Inside the staff lounge, Dr. Riley and her team discussed contingency plans for the power grid. If we lose electricity, generator comes on, then priority to ICU and maternity wards, Riley reminded everyone, her tone all business. She tried not to worry, but the surge in donations and attention meant the center was busier and more exposed than ever. Every animal mattered. At just after midnight, the storm struck. Rain battered the roof like 1,000 hammers, and wind screamed down the narrow alleys between enclosures. A huge, sickening crack rang out, louder than thunder, and everyone in the building jumped. Maddie and Riley rushed into the hallway, hearts pounding, to see a mass of water pouring through the ceiling in the recovery wing. They sprinted to Luna's enclosure and saw it. A giant tree branch, ripped from a decades-old cottonwood, had smashed through the mesh wall. Twisted metal and splintered wood littered the floor, and the room filled with the sharp scent of wet earth and panic. The puppies yelped, scattering from Luna's protective embrace, while Luna herself crouched low, every muscle tense, eyes blazing in the dim light. "We need to move them," Riley shouted over the storm, waving to Maddie and 2 techs. They fumbled for towels and crates, dodging falling debris, trying to keep their own fear at bay. Suddenly, a new threat slithered in through the hole, drawn by the scent of panic and the confusion of the night. A wild raccoon, drenched and desperate, squeezed through the opening, teeth bared and eyes wild. It lunged at the nearest puppy, hissing and snarling, a predator's hunger overriding any fear of humans or bobcats. Maddie screamed. She reached for the puppy, but Luna was faster. With a guttural snarl unlike anything the staff had ever heard, Luna sprang between the raccoon and her adopted family. The two animals clashed in a blur of claws and teeth, fur flying, the raccoon shrieking in rage and pain as Luna drove it back with furious swipes of her uninjured paw. The raccoon made another pass, darting toward the smallest puppy. Without hesitation, Luna lunged, ignoring the pain in her healing leg. She bit down, not to kill, but to warn. And finally, the raccoon, overwhelmed by Luna's fury, turned tail and fled back into the storm. For a heartbeat, the world was silent except for the storm's rage outside and the puppy's terrified whimpers. Blood trickled from Luna's reopened stitches, but she barely seemed to notice. Her only focus was the puppies, who now huddled beneath her, trembling. Maddie knelt beside the enclosure, tears streaming down her face, hands shaking with adrenaline. "You saved them. You crazy brave girl. You saved them," Maddie cried, reaching through the bars to stroke Luna's head. Luna pressed into her touch, her purr deep and rumbling despite the pain. Dr. Riley and her team moved fast, patching Luna's wounds, gathering the puppies, and transferring everyone to a makeshift safe room. The power flickered, then died, plunging the building into shadows. Emergency lights glowed red and eerie in the hallways as staff hustled from enclosure to enclosure, checking on every animal, every life that depended on them. In the quiet after the storm, Riley stitched Luna's leg once more, hands gentle but firm. She marveled at Luna's refusal to back down, her unwavering courage in the face of new danger. "You don't even know these puppies are a different species, do you?" Riley murmured, voice thick. "Or maybe you do, and it just doesn't matter." Maddie rocked the puppies, who were already recovering, snuggled in Luna's warmth. "She loves them," Maddie whispered, as much to herself as to Riley. "She'd do anything for them now." Word of Luna's heroism spread quickly. By morning, photos of the battered but defiant bobcat standing guard over 4 sleepy puppies lit up the internet. The comments came fast and furious, people in awe of her bravery, others wondering if she could ever truly be called wild again. Journalists called the center non-stop. Offers for interviews and TV appearances poured in, but Riley kept the press at bay, determined to protect Luna's peace. Still, the staff knew something essential had shifted. Luna's devotion wasn't just about instinct or survival anymore. It was deeper, a raw, real maternal love that transcended boundaries of nature and expectation. That night, as the winds finally quieted and the rescue center repaired its wounds, Maddie sat beside Luna's new enclosure, a hand resting on the bobcat's back as the puppies nursed and dreamed. "You showed the world what love looks like," she whispered, "not just the world outside, but all of us in here too." Luna opened her eyes, gaze soft but fierce, and for the first time Maddie saw in them something more than loss or pain. A spark of trust, a bond built through storm and sacrifice. Days after the storm, a calm settled over North Valley Wildlife Rescue. The kind of peaceful hush that comes after the world has been turned upside down and, against all odds, righted itself. The air outside still carried the sweet, clean scent of rain, and the desert sun seemed gentler, as if even the weather had decided to pause and marvel at the miracle inside the center. Luna's legend grew with every hour. The story of the bobcat who fought off a wild raccoon to protect her adopted puppies had reached far beyond Arizona, inspiring animal lovers and skeptics alike. Journalists who had been turned away by Dr. Riley left handwritten notes on the center's door. Local schoolchildren sent drawings of Luna in a superhero cape, her tail curled around puppies of every shape and color. But the most profound changes were happening inside the rescue itself. Something had shifted in the hearts of the staff. Dr. Riley noticed it in the way the techs lingered by Luna's enclosure, whispering encouragement, or how Maddie checked on the puppies at all hours, her eyes shining with purpose. Even the most jaded volunteers, people who'd seen too many failed rescues and goodbyes, found themselves lingering, watching Luna with a mix of awe and gratitude. Maddie, in particular, felt transformed. The puppy feeding schedule became her life's rhythm. She kept careful logs, weighed each puppy twice a day, and noted every milestone. The golden boy opened his eyes first, squinting at the world before letting out a yawn so big it seemed to swallow the morning light. The runt, once so fragile, grew plump and feisty, nipping at Luna's tail before falling asleep in a tangle of soft fur. Yet it was Luna who changed most of all. The trauma that had left her broken and withdrawn now gave way to a new energy. She mothered the puppies fiercely, nursing, cleaning, correcting them with a gentle but firm paw when play grew too rough. When anyone, even Maddie, reached into the enclosure too quickly, Luna would stand between them and her litter, eyes sharp, her presence commanding respect. Riley watched all this with a scientist's eye and a rescuer's heart. She wondered, could Luna's healing be harnessed for more? The idea struck during a late-night walk through the recovery wing, where the cries of new arrivals echoed through the empty halls. Orphaned fox kits, a trio of raccoons left behind in a flood, and, heartbreakingly, a kitten with a badly broken leg, all waiting for comfort, for something like hope. It was Maddie who voiced what everyone was thinking. "Do you think she could help them too?" she asked Riley, her voice tentative but full of hope. Riley hesitated. The risks were real. Mixing species, exposing fragile newborns to a wild predator. But every instinct, honed by years of rescue work, told her to trust the evidence before her eyes. Luna had rewritten every rule already. "Let's try," Riley decided. Carefully, one at a time and only with close supervision. The first was a pair of fox kits, shivering and silent in their crate. Maddie placed them at the edge of Luna's enclosure, her heart in her throat. Luna approached, nose twitching, tail flicking with curiosity. She sniffed the kits, then, with a rumble of approval, began to groom them just as she had the puppies. The kits responded instantly, pressing into her warmth, their frightened cries fading. It was a revelation. Over the next week, Luna welcomed more orphans, a raccoon kit, still wobbly on its legs, a ginger kitten with bright green eyes and a body wrapped in tiny bandages. Luna was patient, attentive, and almost regal, somehow able to sense the needs of each newcomer. She never snapped, never showed aggression. If an animal was too scared, Luna simply lay still, waiting for them to come to her in their own time. Word spread through the rescue community. Other centers called for advice, eager to understand how trauma could turn into such radical empathy. Local news picked up the story again, dubbing Luna the Universal Mother, a title that soon went viral. Riley fielded calls from scientists, animal behaviorists, even families with children facing their own losses and fears. But it was a late night, just after visiting hours ended, that truly changed everything. A staff member brought in a dying kitten, barely breathing, its tiny body limp. The vet had done all she could. The staff hovered in silence as Maddie gently placed the kitten beside Luna. The bobcat pressed her nose to the kitten's side, purring so deeply the sound vibrated through the floor. Luna curled around the kitten, warming it with her body, her eyes half closed in concentration. For the first time in her long, difficult career, Dr. Riley wept openly, tears streaming down her cheeks as Luna soothed the suffering animal. "It's not just biology," Riley whispered later, her voice breaking. "She knows. She feels it. This is what real healing looks like." After that night, the center's entire philosophy began to change. They no longer saw the animals as cases or projects, but as complex feeling beings with their own histories, hurts, and the ability to change each other for the better. Staff meetings became forums for new ideas about comfort and compassion. Volunteers received new training, learning to see beyond species and behavior to the soul of each animal in their care. Maddie, filled with pride and awe, devoted herself fully to the orphans. She started a journal documenting Luna's interactions, how she could calm a panicked fox kit with a single nuzzle, or coax a terrified raccoon out of hiding with patient, steady purrs. Each entry became a lesson in love, in connection, in the magic that happens when survival and empathy meet. And all the while, Luna never faltered. Every new arrival found a place in her growing circle. A kitten, a raccoon, even a pair of baby jackrabbits. Her enclosure became a living, breathing testament to the possibility of hope, even for those who had lost everything. The rescue center felt different now, lighter, brighter, like a place where miracles could happen and did, over and over, every single day. The day Luna's story broke nationwide was unlike any the rescue had ever seen. What began with a single viral video, Luna curled protectively around a patchwork family of puppies, fox kits, kittens, and even a raccoon, swept through social media and morning talk shows with unstoppable force. Overnight, North Valley Wildlife Rescue went from a struggling outpost on the edge of the Arizona desert to a symbol of hope, empathy, and second chances across America. Phone lines rang off the hook. Reporters camped outside the gates with satellite vans and microphones, hoping for a glimpse of the famous Bobcat and her miracle family. TV cameras tried to peer through windows. The rescue's small lobby overflowed with letters, flowers, handmade cards, and care packages, enough to fill a dozen bulletin boards, and then some. One little girl sent her own beloved stuffed puppy, so Luna can have another baby to love. Donations poured in faster than the volunteers could log them. Families gave what they could, sometimes only a few dollars, sometimes thousands. There were matching grants from corporations and charities, and even a check from a well-known animal rights activist who wrote simply, "For Luna, for all the mothers who never give up." The financial pressure that had hung over the rescue for years vanished almost overnight, replaced by a flurry of activity and hope. Dr. Riley, already known as a dedicated, if stubborn, head vet, suddenly found herself being interviewed on radio shows and podcasts, her phone buzzing with media requests day and night. She kept her answers careful and focused, always redirecting attention to the animal's needs. "Luna is extraordinary," she told Good Morning Arizona. "But every orphan, every rescue, animal or human, deserves a safe place to heal. That's our mission." The board of directors called an emergency meeting and quickly voted to launch a new sanctuary project. They broke ground that same week, naming it Luna's Den, a sprawling, sunlit annex with larger enclosures, state-of-the-art medical facilities, play yards shaded by native trees, and space for more orphans than ever before. The staff and volunteers wept as the first bulldozers rolled in. It was more than a building. It was a promise to the future. Maddie, still blinking in disbelief at how fast her world was changing, was offered a full-time job as the orphan care coordinator. She accepted without hesitation, determined to give every lost animal the same chance Luna and the puppies had received. The role suited her perfectly, organizing shifts, running the bottle feeding schedule, updating the center's wildly popular social media page, and her favorite task, spending hours inside Luna's den, sprawled on the floor, surrounded by a chaos of purring, yipping, napping babies from every corner of the wild. Luna herself became a fixture at the center's heart. Day after day, she welcomed new orphans, some trembling and terrified, others weak from hunger or injury. Luna would approach them with patience, sniffing, licking, rumbling her deep, reassuring purr until, one by one, they crept closer. She never forced comfort, never snapped. Even when a newcomer panicked and tried to bite, Luna responded only with a gentle nudge or by curling protectively around the others, inviting the frightened one to join when ready. As word spread, animal welfare centers across the country reached out to North Valley for advice. Some began experimenting with comfort circles, pairing trauma survivors of different species together, inspired by Luna's unique ability to unite the broken. The compassion model, seeing every animal as a feeling, grieving, growing individual, began to take root well beyond Arizona. For the puppies, the days with Luna were golden. They grew plump and playful, strong on their wobbly legs, wrestling in the shade or tumbling over one another to nurse. The golden boy was first to be adopted by a local firefighter's family. The runt, once thought too weak to survive, went home with Maddie, her fierce little shadow. Each time a puppy left, Luna watched from the enclosure with calm acceptance, then turned her attention to the next arrival, her maternal spirit undiminished by loss or change. The rescue marked these milestones with joyful tears, every departure a bittersweet victory. Each animal who left Luna's den carried with them a piece of her gentle strength, a reminder that healing was possible, even for those who had lost everything. As Luna's fame grew, so did the rescue's sense of responsibility. There were hard days, animals who didn't make it, public criticism from skeptics, exhaustion that seeped into the bones of every staff member. But those days always ended in the sanctuary, with Luna at the center of her ever-changing family, her presence a living lesson in resilience. One afternoon, Maddie sat cross-legged in Luna's den, a sleepy fox kit sprawled across her lap, Luna curled at her feet. A group of children, some adopted, some in foster care, all carrying their own invisible wounds, watched through the glass. Maddie waved, then beckoned them inside, the new policy allowing small groups of visitors to experience Luna's magic up close. The children entered quietly, their faces wary but curious. Luna regarded them with patient eyes, then rolled onto her back, exposing her belly, a sign of trust and welcome. One by one, the children reached out, petting her gently, feeling her deep, steady purr vibrating beneath their palms. For a moment, all the walls between wild and tame, pain and healing, seemed to vanish. That evening, as the desert sun dipped below the horizon and golden light streamed through Luna's den, Riley found Maddie sitting beside the bobcat. The puppies were gone, but Luna was surrounded by newcomers. A kitten, a rabbit, a nervous raccoon, all snuggled close. "She's different now," Maddie said softly, not looking up. "She's found her purpose. We all have." Riley smiled, pride and gratitude softening the lines of her face. "And she's given that to everyone here, every animal, every person. She's made us believe in second chances." Outside, the world still buzzed with news and excitement. But within the walls of Luna's den, there was only peace and the quiet certainty that every act of love made a difference. no matter how wild or unexpected it might seem. As the summer faded into gentle autumn, Luna's story continued to spread, far beyond the rescue's sun-baked fences. News anchors called her a living legend. Teachers shared her videos in classrooms across the country. Riley and Maddie found themselves invited to conferences, animal welfare summits, and even elementary schools, asked again and again to share not just Luna's journey, but the meaning behind it, the transformation that happens when pain meets compassion. At the first conference, Maddie stood behind the podium, palms sweating, her mind racing with doubt. She remembered her first night with the puppies, their cries, her fear she'd failed them, the way Luna had broken through her own suffering to comfort someone else. Now Maddie faced an audience of experts, some skeptical, some hopeful, all curious about what a wild bobcat could possibly teach humans about love. Riley took the microphone and began, her voice strong. Before Luna, we thought we understood trauma. We saw it in behavior, aggression, withdrawal, depression. We used medicine, routine, patience. But Luna made us see what was invisible, the ache for connection, the need not just to survive, but to belong and be understood. She described Luna's first days, the blood and silence, the wounds that would not heal, the way the bobcat called for cubs who never came. We learned the hard way that healing isn't just physical. Sometimes the wounds we can't see run deepest. Maddie spoke next, recalling the moment Luna first perked up at the puppy's cries, how hope flickered in the bobcat's eyes. She described the risks, the doubts, and the way Luna transformed before their eyes, not just surviving, but choosing to care for creatures utterly unlike herself. Luna wasn't following a script, she was hurting. And still, she chose empathy over instinct, connection over loneliness. That changed how we look at every animal who comes through our doors. The audience was quiet. Some wiped away tears, others scribbled notes. It wasn't just a story about animals, Maddie realized. It was a mirror held up to human hearts. Back at the rescue, the ripple effect of Luna's example continued to reshape the daily rhythm. Intake forms changed. Now, instead of listing case and status, each animal's folder began with their story, where they came from, what they'd lost, what they might still hope for. Volunteers learned to pause, to let an orphaned fox kit or frightened puppy set the pace for trust. When new animals arrived, Luna's den was the first stop, a soft landing where every orphan was greeted not with clinical detachment, but with gentle hands, soft voices, and the steady reassurance of Luna's presence. Maddie took charge of training new volunteers. She taught them how to recognize signs of grief and stress in animals, how to use patience instead of force, and how sometimes just sitting quietly beside a trembling kitten did more good than any medicine. She showed them videos of Luna's first days, then her first moments with the puppies, the fox kits, the kittens. "Look at her eyes," Maddie would say. "That's the look of someone who knows what it's like to hurt and chooses to help anyway." For Riley, the transformation was personal. She'd always prided herself on professionalism and science, on treating trauma with protocol and medication. But Luna's example forced her to question everything she thought she knew. She began reading up on animal emotions, consulting with behaviorists, studying case after case where connection and comfort made the difference between survival and giving up. "Empathy isn't weakness," she explained at a staff meeting, voice shaking with conviction. "It's the most powerful tool we have, not just for animals, but for ourselves." Word spread far beyond Arizona. Other rescue centers began to adopt the compassion model, creating comfort spaces where traumatized animals could heal together. Some centers even partnered with children's hospitals and therapy programs, bringing in pairs of animals, sometimes even Luna's own graduates, to comfort kids facing trauma, loss, or change. Journalists called it the Luna effect, describing how a single bobcat story sparked a movement across shelters and sanctuaries. Public perception shifted. Where once people saw wild animals as unpredictable or dangerous, now there was curiosity, respect, even awe. Letters poured in from parents who'd used Luna's story to comfort children after loss, from veterans who found hope in her resilience, from people who'd given up on kindness but found their way back after seeing Luna and her ever-changing family. Through it all, Luna kept giving. She greeted each new orphan with the same patience and warmth, never rushing, never judging, always offering comfort at their own pace. Her eyes, once dull with grief, shone bright and clear, her health stabilized. She carried herself with a quiet authority, her presence reassuring animals and humans alike that second chances were possible, that pain could become purpose. One crisp October morning, a school bus pulled up outside the rescue. A dozen children filed in, led by their teacher. They gathered around Luna's den, their faces pressed to the glass, wide-eyed as Luna curled herself around a pair of nervous rabbit kits. Maddie invited them inside, teaching them to move slowly and speak softly. One girl, silent and withdrawn, sat beside Luna, and after a long, tense minute, reached out to gently stroke her fur. The girl smiled for the first time that day. "She's not scared anymore," she whispered. "She's brave." Maddie nodded, her throat tight. "She is, and so are you." After the visit, Riley watched the kids leave, their voices excited and hopeful. She turned to Maddie, both women filled with pride. "We're not just saving animals," Riley said. "We're changing lives." That night, as Luna rested in her den, older, wiser, surrounded by her adopted family, Maddie sat nearby, pen in hand, writing in her journal. She wrote about Luna's courage, about the lesson she'd given everyone who crossed her path. That healing is never a straight line. It's messy, slow, sometimes heartbreaking. But it's possible for all creatures, if someone is willing to stand beside you when you're at your weakest. And as the stars blinked awake above the desert, Luna's purr echoed softly through the sanctuary, a lullaby for every heart that still believed in hope. Years passed beneath the broad Arizona sky, and Luna's story outgrew the walls of North Valley Wildlife Rescue. Visitors arrived from all over the country, sometimes from much farther, families bundled in summer hats and kids clutching homemade posters, each hoping for a glimpse of the bobcat who'd rewritten the meaning of motherhood and hope. Luna was older now, her coat flecked with silver, eyes softer but undimmed. She remained the center of Luna's den, her sanctuary alive with the constant movement and noise of orphans. Kittens tumbled over each other in sunbeams. Fox kits yipped and darted. Even the occasional fawn found comfort pressed against Luna's side. She moved more slowly, choosing her moments, but her presence never faded. She radiated calm and reassurance, as if the sanctuary's beating heart lived within her chest. Riley, now a leading advocate for emotional rehabilitation in wildlife care, often found herself reflecting on all she'd learned since that first night Zach rushed through the doors with a broken, dying bobcat. She'd gone from a scientist who believed in protocols and statistics to a mentor who spoke of patience and empathy. She wrote a book, Wild Hearts, What Luna Taught Me About Healing, which quickly became a must-read for animal lovers, therapists, and even trauma counselors. In her pages, she detailed Luna's resilience, her acts of radical compassion, and how those lessons shaped a new generation of caretakers. One passage, read aloud at animal welfare conferences, struck a chord everywhere. We think of wildness as something to be tamed or survived. Luna showed us that wildness is also the birthplace of courage, empathy, and transformation. True healing is not a solitary journey. It is a circle, made strong by those willing to walk with us through the darkness, no matter how different we may seem. Maddie, too, had changed. Once a hesitant volunteer, she now directed Luna's den, training new arrivals with Luna's methods. Always gentle, always patient. She insisted on knowing every animal's story, reminding staff that rescue wasn't just about survival, but about belonging. Maddie worked long hours, often falling asleep on a cot beside the enclosures, lulled by the night sounds of purring, gentle snuffles, and Luna's ever-present, reassuring rumble. She loved watching the moments when a frightened animal first reached out for comfort, or when a once timid kitten curled up next to Luna, finally safe enough to sleep. Over time, she noticed something profound. Luna's influence was contagious. Older animals paired with new arrivals began to mimic her behavior, grooming and comforting the smallest, standing watch during thunderstorms, forming a patchwork of interspecies families. Zach, the driver whose single act of compassion had sparked it all, never lost his awe for Luna. He visited whenever he could, sometimes helping with building projects or delivering supplies, always making time to sit quietly near the enclosure, talking softly to the animals. "She saved me as much as I saved her," he'd say to new volunteers, his voice thick with gratitude. If you ever wonder if one small act can matter, remember Luna. The sanctuary's walls held thousands of stories, but none so visible as Luna's. Her photograph hung in the main entrance, taken on a golden afternoon, surrounded by fox kits and puppies, her eyes bright with purpose. The motto beneath it read, "Love is wild, healing is shared, and hope always finds a way." Luna's den became more than a place for animals. It grew into a haven for people, too. Children facing trauma visited for special sessions, learning to care for the orphans and, in turn, finding comfort in their presence. Some kids arrived silent and wary, but left with smiles, clutching stories of Luna's courage to their hearts. Therapy programs paired teens struggling with loss or anxiety with gentle animals, letting Luna's example guide their healing. Even on the hardest days, when an animal was lost or a storm threatened, staff would gather around Luna's enclosure and draw strength from her calm. "She's still teaching us," Maddie would say, "still showing us how to show up for each other." As the years rolled on, Luna slowed down, but she never stopped caring. New orphans would arrive, trembling and frightened, and Luna would shuffle over, settle beside them, and let her warmth do the rest. Her legacy spread, not just through the animals she raised, but through every person who witnessed her quiet acts of courage. On her last summer, when Luna was well into her twilight years, a crowd gathered for the sanctuary's anniversary. Riley spoke to the visitors, her words ringing clear in the desert breeze. Luna changed everything. She reminded us that real strength is gentle, that true family is chosen, not given, that no one heals alone. She looked over at Maddie, who nodded, tears in her eyes, and at Zach, who smiled softly. Her story isn't just about survival. It's about becoming, about helping others become, too. Luna spent the day basking in the sun, surrounded by animals who owed her their lives. As dusk settled, she was seen curled around a trembling fox kit and a new puppy, her head resting on her paws, eyes half closed in peace. The sanctuary, once small and struggling, now thrived, a place where hope was as common as sunlight, where every life was met with open arms and patient hearts. New programs blossomed, pairing older animals with young ones, fostering unlikely friendships, welcoming children and families who needed a place to heal. Luna's story endured not because of how many she saved, but because she revealed the deepest truth about healing. No one heals alone. Whether animal or human, we are shaped by loss, pain, and fear. But we are also shaped and saved by those who choose to stand with us, especially when we're at our weakest. As the desert night cooled and stars blinked awake, Luna rested in her chosen family's warmth. Her legacy was everywhere, in the laughter of children, the purr of kittens, the gentle hush of new beginnings. The world was softer, more compassionate, because one bobcat dared to love beyond all expectation. And so the story of Luna lived on, whispered from heart to heart, hope spreading, one act of courage and kindness at a time.